Okay, we're ready.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Weekly Wednesday at DriverlessWorldSchool. I'm Sneha Jadhav. I'll be your host today. And I'm a product manager on data products, IoT, BI, and you name it. So today we have Mamta Narain with us. Welcome, Mamta. Mamta is CEO and founder of RealWorldAI.co. She is a career AI professional and has worked in companies like eBay, PayPal, Cole, HP, Genpact, you name it. She has been there. And today she'll be talking to us about product management in AI space. I think it's a very, very challenge. I think PM product management role itself is a challenging role. And when you put it in a space, in an AI space, or look at it in that perspective, I think that it's even more challenging just because of the unknowns. So thanks, Mamta, for being here. And without further ado, I would like to jump in and see. Sorry. Are you guys able to hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, awesome.
And people can chat or ask questions. What is the protocol? How do you want us to do this?
Yeah. So, right. So the way we would work is that you usually have a question answer session. Mamta has some slides that she would like to walk us through first. So we let her walk us through those slides. Everyone, if you have questions, please type in the chat window and we will pick up the questions as and when it's the right appropriate. If it's an appropriate time within the session, we will pick it up or we'll pick it up towards the end of the session.
Sure, yeah. Should I go ahead from here?
Yeah, please. Please go ahead.
So I have about 45 minutes, or just remind me about the time again.
Till 10 o'clock.
Till 10 o'clock, okay. Let me share my screen. Okay. Yeah, so first of all, thank you to Sneha and Sudha for having me here. I'm very excited about it, and this continues to be my favorite topic for years. Product management is I think it's in my DNA. And of course, AI is just really giving fuel to the fire there. So yeah, about myself, Sneha has already said a lot. So I'm not going to recap everything, but the essence that I want you to know about myself is that I have product and business mindset in my DNA. And recently I started my own company. And really, I'm touching on the last two paragraphs here. My next mission is to evangelize and promote data science, ML, and AI to business, products, students, anybody in the non-engineering community to make sense of this a very upcoming or established field already on how it really affects everything that we do. And my passion is really brave enough to fail at something new. And I think product managers and generally have that essence in their mind as well. So AI product management was the topic today, and I want to start this thing off with touching upon some things that you may already know, but it is a quick reminder. I'll fly by it fast so that we can have some good discussions on it. So AI product management, it's really an amalgamation of AI and product management. But when the two come together, how does it all pan out? So what is product management? As a reminder, I'm going to quote Steve Jobs. You have got to start with customer experience and work backward to the technology. You can't start with the technology and then try to figure out where to sell it. With all the definitions of product management, I keep reminding myself and others who I talk to, who is a product manager? As a product manager, we are responsible for solving a customer's problem and solving the right ones. Just because something can be solved, shouldn't be solved. Just if it's not broken, don't fix it. Maybe, maybe not. And don't get a technology in search of a problem. So this really remains the essence of product management, whether it is AI or it is not AI. And of course, we all are very well aware what else, like product managers are the CEO of their products, they are the connectors of it, they need to understand the industry and blah, blah, blah. But at the core of it, I believe for product managers, we should know how we solve our customer problems and which one to solve. And the reason I'm emphasizing it, it actually becomes more important when you're talking about machine learning. Now, what is artificial intelligence? We all know it. It's the ability of computers to think, perceive, see, learn. But the reason I kept this slide is, so what is machine learning or AI when it comes to product managers? And this definition of machine learning for product managers, I'm in love with it, and I am not the one who created it, but that summarizes the role of product managers. So machine learning is to simplify a large amount of data into a single decision, prediction, one variable that can be solved, that can be used to solve your customer's problem. So I'm going to reiterate this again. We all know machine learning is the ability for computers to use algorithms and statistical measures to give you a model, but that's really good for engineers. What does it mean for a product manager? For the product manager, it means for us, machine learning or AI is all about taking this load full of data, use machine learning, and get it down to that prediction. And what is that prediction that's going to be, or what is that single decision that data is going to make for us, is the crux of product managers. So this ties back to what is the problem we are solving. So that is how I say machine learning for product management. So what is then AI product management? It is solving your customer, business, enterprise, whoever your customer is. When I say customer, it doesn't mean one user. It could be enterprise, it could be business, it could be anyone. So solving their problems using computer intelligence. But then in AI product management, the nuances are that you have to face additional challenges. They are more unknown. There is non-deterministic outcomes. And by that I mean is every time you predict, it will not be your set results. If not, if the nulls pick up from a table and display, which is what a lot of seasoned product managers or even engineers are used to creating solutions around. That, okay, if you are asking for blue jeans, I know this is the blue jeans catalog, and it will. Sorry about that. Can everyone mute because it's a little distracting? Yeah. So with AI product management, that becomes the most difficult thing, that you don't know if you are running a 100% ML-based search, which are the blue jeans going to be recommended to the customer. But that is the exciting part, and that is the challenging. And then there is this new infrastructures, guidelines, tools, processes to manage the whole AI ops. And as product managers, just like we have been used to working with our DevOps in the old world or old traditional product management roles, like the traffic and what to expect, there are similar kind of things that gets into the new ML operations as well. So just to recap, for AI product management, you need to do all the traditional activities, plus you need to know that you're solving the right machine learning problem. Of course, it has to be aligned with your business priorities. That does not change in AI. The third point is very important. How do you demonstrate a realistic return of investment from AI products and investment to the business? This is where most product managers are stumbling today in the industry, because it's not just product managers, it's even the businesses having a hard time realizing the ROI on the AI projects, because we are paying the price for our own inventions. In software, you change the button from red to yellow, and in real time, you see the results. So this instant gratification in the software world that we have come to use to does not work in AI. It is a long maturity cycle. So by far, number three, where you have to pitch in front of the businesses or tell those businesses that using ML or AI, I can solve your business problem, is very hard to get those fundings, because they'll say, oh, can you demonstrate it in next quarter? And pretty much the answer, without even knowing any question, will be no, because there are tons of things that we have to touch upon. And then the fourth one is really about more a soft skill. No product manager has ever been very successful without technical and soft skills both. And the soft skill is knowing your company dynamics, the groups who are in charge of data. Here, what it means is, even if you're not solving the best problems, I'm now being counterintuitive here, even if you're not solving the best problems, solve the problems for the group that is in control of the data. Because you can think that I will solve the search business units problem in, let's say, in an e-commerce firm, but they realize that they have only access to the federated APIs, some federated APIs from the data science team. But then you realize that the marketing teams have broader control over the data science teams, but their problems are not as big and grandiose as the search group's role, but they are in control of the data. So I would suggest, as a product management, start there. Start with who has the data, and then find what are the business problems that can be solved that ties to the business objective. And of course, operational understanding of the machine learning process. I am going to get into this pretty soon, and the PM role in each of those life cycle. Any questions so far, or should we just take the questions in the end?
I had a question.
Sure.
Sneha is going to read it out. Sneha, can I just speak the question?
Yeah, please. Yeah, please.
You mentioned federated API from the data science team, Mamta. So data science team, what I've seen is they're always building some kind of new machine learning models, and there is a life cycle for it. So it's not quite production ready till you give them real data from the business. So what do you mean by federated API?
Oh, okay. Actually, a good question. So here, again, since I started the search e-commerce example, all I mean is, how does your business know what data you have? And whatever data you have you tagged it, and you have labeled it for different reasons, not just for machine learning. And once you know what your data is, you have it stored in a proper manner. How does rest of the organization access those data? So in many companies, even internally, you don't have access to those data tables right away. You will ask your data science to create some stuff for you, but access to all of those data will be through APIs. So do you have these data APIs available to access some of those data? So when I say federate your API, even in the context of one business internally, nothing to go outside. Let's say if it was any e-commerce company, let's say it was Macy's. So Macy's search team needs, let's say, some data about your customer. So typically that access to those customer data table, these search engineers sometimes may not have access to those. And I have seen that firsthand. They will say, okay, if you need access to a certain amount of data, tell us, and we will publish that data to you. But many companies now in 2020, or at least I hope, have a better data policy where they are collecting the data properly, whether it is in data lake or distributed data centers, however it is, they are organizing the data well, and they are creating all these generic APIs in advance, understanding the business needs. If not, they collect this on their roadmap. So it's basically access to data through APIs, because most companies don't allow you direct access to their tables, right?
So does that mean a company which is in early stages of machine learning products, they don't have enough of those products out, has to go through that cycle of figuring out whether the data is clean and ready and labeled before product management gets involved? Or does product management has a role in asking for certain data to kind of initiate that cleaning process?
You know what? Product manager has 100% role, and the answer is both ways. So if you hold off, that's exactly what I'm going to go through, is how does the product management play a role in all of those stages. We do play a role. At the same time, it is also very dependent upon company, and it's also dependent upon the kind of problems you're solving. But for a generic data science team, this is where the different roles play in. You'll have a data product manager. So that data product manager's role is just that, what are these generic data sets that my company will need? So creating that data platform. But the second part of it, labeling the data or what data is needed, I'm just going to get into exactly that. And like maybe in 2 minutes, I'll be there.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, but the first part is like the role of data. So data product managers, and they are dime a dozen in the industry right now because it's an important role, is actually very much involved in doing just that. But they may not be the AI product managers. And at some point, we should go into what are these different roles, what I have seen, like what can be termed as an AI product manager versus a data science product managers. And there is no one definition, as long as we understand and see where we want to play a role. That will also be a good way to think about your own path. Anyway, so what is the most important aspect of AI product management? It's data, data, data. It's like discover where your data is, where your source of data, what sort of data you have. Know that domain. It's the most important thing for product manager. And it's not about AI or ML. Like if you're an e-commerce product manager, you know the e-commerce domain. If you're a healthcare product manager, then the chances are you understand the healthcare, not chances, the expectation is that you understand the healthcare industry. And then once you know where the data is coming, once you understand the business of the domain, you need to define what sort of problems I'm going to solve. But in terms of ML, taking that domain, knowing the source of data and knowing what the data is available, how do you define the best ML problem based on the data that you have access to? Because many times where data scientists stumble, and it's not singling out a particular community, you can Google it, many times where data scientists are stumbling today in the industry, they are producing the best algorithms that can be made out, or models that can be generated from the data that they have, but they really don't know which problems they are solving or how is business going to use them. And data scientists have been the most cherished career of all times. Where product managers have not been able to catch up the way I would want, and not because of us, because of the way industry looks at it, is like, if anything, we need the product managers to be sitting with the data scientists and saying, hey, in this domain, this is the best ML problem to go after. Because the companies have overspent on data scientists and underspent or underused their product managers in teaming up with the data scientists. And right now, I don't have one answer to that. So where is the most time spent? I know all of you probably know this, knowing your background, that the most amount is spent of data scientist is in the data cleaning part. Once the data is important, labeled, cleaned, the whole data wrangling steps are done, the data is ready and prepped, the data scientists really come in and start using the algorithms to generate a model. And it is actually in this data wrangling phase where I do think a product manager needs to work hand in hand with all the roles. And I'm not saying data scientist here, because data engineers, data scientists, machine learning engineers, they all play a different role in this whole data wrangling aspect of it. So the way I'm going to take the next 10, 15 minutes is I'm going to go through the whole machine learning life cycle and product management and the role we play in that. That's the best way I thought that I'm able to convey what is a AI product manager or ML product manager, because there is no one size fits all product management. So what I'm going to do is, for the purpose of having something to anchor to, I'm going to take a typical supervised machine learning life cycle and then go step by step the role that product managers play in each cycle, in each phase. So the first is define the problem. That's what I've been going after. And I'm going to run through this a little fast, hoping that at a higher level, you all know all the steps. So the first step is defining the problem. When it gets to more technical details, it's letting our data scientists know what is the target variable we are trying to predict, whether it is predicting a price for a house or whether it is detecting if a patient has cancer or not. So what is that problem or that target variable? So then you immediately start with importing data and data wrangling and all the steps that are involved in it. Once your data is ready, you need product managers should heavily be involved in data splits. And this is, of course, data splitting, training and testing. It's a data engineers or machine learning engineers role, that they will be actually creating those data splits. But these data splits, the criteria for this data split, definitely product manager should be involved. Actually, I'll hold off and go into the role in a little bit. Feature selection, very important, one of the core for product managers. What feature selections should happen? And by the way, none of this, I would say, requires coding. You need to know the technology, and you're brainstorming, whiteboarding with your people, with whoever that team is. And then once the feature is selected, data is like training the model. Definitely this is an ML engineer or data scientist is training the model. Prediction happens, and we are constantly fine tuning it. And then we are evaluating the accuracy of your model that was pushed to live. And then the feedback loop starts. Then we again go back with the new data trainer model. So this should sound familiar, fairly generic. Now, preview of role of product manager in this life cycle. So let's start with define the problem. What is the thing? I'm just going to spend not more than a minute, because this is what I'm talking about. One of the most important role of product manager is finding the right problem that your business care about, your customers care about, and define it in terms of a machine learning problem. By what it means, what I mean by that is what I meant in my first slide is, yes, the problem statement that product manager says is, let's figure out if this patient has cancer or not. Then going to the next level of detail and say, okay, yes, Mr. Data Scientist, let's sit together and figure out what is that variable that you're going to predict. Is it, does this person has cancer or not? Are you predicting old price for a house, new price for a house? Is it a sales prediction for a particular store? So getting to that level, and it's not very difficult to do if you understand data in your business. And what is that you're predicting? Actually, that's what I'm saying, talking about, getting it to just that next level, defining the problem. And by the way, that is a very important part. Now, importing data and data wrangling. So this is where, Sudha, your question comes in very well, fits in here. So this is where there are so many roles in the industry that are published as data product managers. Data product managers without even solving a particular problem is still working with your data scientists to organize the data, clean the data at a generic level based on the business that they know about, and based on the roadmap that they have been given from their individual business units and individual product managers. But you as the, now I'll say AI product manager who is solving that problem, whether this patient has cancer or not, you will have to work, okay, what data is needed? Where are the data sources? How much data is enough? How much data is enough so precious data resources are not wasted? And I'll talk about that also. So these 2 or 3 things, you sit with your business, your data scientist, and anybody on the team that is involved in your organization to figure these things out. If you leave it on somebody else, let's start with number 3. The data scientist will say, yeah, if you want to detect if a patient has cancer or not, why don't you just send me entire health history along with what car does this person drive, where did they live, and everything. And then you realize, no, because you don't need all this data. Who knows how much data is needed? Product managers know. Why do they know? Because we as product managers are expected to know the domain. Why is, we all know, if you can add 10 more fields, of course, nothing is going to go wrong. But guess what? Each column of data is a lot of resources and money, which is wasted. So the minimum amount of data that is needed to get to your prediction, the best data scientist will also say is the simplest algorithms on the most clean and minimal amount of data. You may need more data samples, but doesn't mean that you need so much field. So knowing that data. So this is where the role of the product manager is. Now in the data wrangling phase, remove redundancy. Like if it says, and actually I'll just give a different example, and I will be taking different, I'm not staying with just one example, because I have realized if I use different examples, it sometimes also may click based on your industry. I was just helping a small business merchant, and they were like some data issues there. And they have been working with the data scientist. It was about, high calorie and medium calorie. And they are 2 different, and low calorie, something like that. And this is a health firm. They're trying to promote good health products. And what I realized was while the 3 columns was high calorie, low calorie, medium calorie, if you really looked at the label, it was 100 calories, 95 calories, and 90 calories. I'm like and I talked to the nutritionist. She says, no, low calorie should be 55. So basically so what we did was we just did a simple mean and actually collapsed the medium and high to high calorie. And then we went back to actually the manufacturers. I'm like, what is wrong here? Because forget about the data science problem. There is something wrong even in that packaging, whoever approved it. And this was like, these people are generating their own products and stuff like that. So this can only be done removing. So redundancy was, you don't need 3 columns for calories. Remove extra features. Extra features is just that if you're trying to detect if somebody has a cancer or not, don't ask me what was like this person driving last year, and you have a ton of patient data. So you'll see, okay, remove these extra features. Or if you were promoting what are the best health products, what are your preferences on your style, whether it is on decorating your house is not needed. And by the way, you must be thinking, why am I even bringing it up? Hopefully as product manager, and this not just product manager, all of us know the amount of data every company has on us. So they have every data on us. So figuring out as product manager what it is. Removing inaccuracies, of course, like if it is inaccurate. Removing bias. This has become my favorite one over the summer. I taught some high schoolers, and they had a simple predict Boston housing prices problem. And the data set I had them use was, for some reason, not by choice, from 1973. And in that data set, there was a column which said, do African Americans live here? I was just appalled. Thankfully, in 2020, nobody's collecting that data. But in 1973, that data was actually collected, and that's bias. On other hand, I just loved that I just accidentally picked up that data set, but I was able to teach bias. So that is, those are some of the things where as product managers, you get involved in it. Now, coming back to Sudha, your question about, I'm just doing a time check, labeling or not, that's very much determined by the problem you're solving and who on your team is available. Like currently, I'm working on a assignment for a company where I am just pleased that they have these, software engineering interns sitting there just, automating these labelings. Of course, they are labeling it in Excel, so no product manager is required. But back when I started my AI journey, I was actually labeling the data or labeling the utterances from this chatbot. So, but at a bare minimum, product managers should be involved in reviewing the labels. One thing I'll say, and this is, of course, if you're trying to learn something, gets your hand and feet dirty. But I would want to say, let's not get in, as product managers, raise our hand unless you are a 2-person startup to say, okay, I'll label your data, because your entire day will be gone labeling your data. Instead, have a seat at the table to say, I will review the labels, give me an engineering resource who's labeling this for me. And by the way, what I'm telling you is no right or wrong answer. By all means, you can sit and label the data because that's how you will learn. But do not sign up for that. Sudha, does that answer your question though?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But do review it, because you want to have the control and the authority to say this is wrong or this is right, that this patient was marked wrongly as not having cancer, and you'll say, okay, this is an edge case. And I'm saying that only because otherwise it becomes busy, but you should be the one to review.
Especially for computer vision, I find that, just the exercise of labeling teaches you about different kind of ways by which algorithms can be built, right? Based on the depth.
Excellent. Thank you for bringing that up. How could I forget that? And HP, that all I did, video intelligence. Perfect. So let's give 30 seconds to 1 minute there. What you just said. There is this website, I think it's Hive or something. And I just recently went and I earned $2 and I gave it away back to them. They give you money to label their data. And it is about a lot about computer vision. And you have to draw bounding boxes. You have to figure out the coordinates and everything. So I would say, in the context of product management and AI, and I'm also bringing the soft part, the political dynamics of everything here. If you're trying to understand, take it outside your project and quickly learn it from somewhere. My response was only in the context of your own company. Tell your people that I want to understand how you're labeling your data and show me how you're labeling your data. But do not get into the business of actually doing it. Learning is, of course, something very different. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah. And then finally, the thing that I have here is about, sorry, guys, just 1 second. I'm trying to see no, battery is fine. That's what I was thinking. I got a notification battery is something else happening. Okay, finally, the data imbalance and bias in data, missing values and null and redundant data. As the name suggests, you should be fairly familiar with some of these concepts where data imbalance is not directly tied to bias, but imbalance of data could be where, if you're detecting, let's say the cancer thing, you have 5,000 data samples and 400 is for malignant and 100 is for benign. So if you are going to train your data on samples which are mostly for benign rather than a malignant, then chances are that your model will skew towards it. So what you do as a product manager, and this is where the data scientist can also raise the issue, and you'll say, yes, this is a problem statement where I want almost a 50-50 balance of data. So then what do? Either you collect more to balance the data on the malignant side, if those are fewer in number, or you just truncate to say, I'll only use sample of 200 of malignant and 200 of benign, and another 100 can go away. So those are the places where product managers play a heavy role. Bias in data, like something we talked about, bias in data, everybody is talking about how most of the healthcare systems are based on white males. So those kind of things, or even I'll say, I don't just want to single out white males. A lot of health issues, diabetes are in US is mostly run on Asians. So those kind of bias, definitely product manager comes into picture, missing values, nulls, redundant. Normalizing your data is about the calorie thing, not calorie thing. You can say, okay, milligram, kilogram, whatever, just helping your data scientist. And some of it your data scientists will do on their own because not too much of domain is needed. And I wanted to give this data section a little bit more time because it's very important role, but may be downplayed by your data scientists and data engineers to pull you in.
So a quick question and also a comment Mamta, on your previous slide. I think one of the things that when I was a new product manager was, when I was given a task, my situation was like, is this something that I do alone, sitting in my cubicle, or you know what I mean, individually, or is this something I get help from? And then the more years I spent in it, I realized that this is something I go out and ask for, create a forum for, bias, create a forum for data imbalance, and then trying to identify the right people. So do you want to help us a little more on how can we, in each of the bullet points you mentioned, who all could we go and ask for help and create a forum so that we are successful in those tasks?
Excellent question. And it is not just AI product management. Any product management role I have played in, I get into this, I will actually even call it, imposter syndrome is not the right word, sorry. It's about we are always hesitant in asking for other team members to join because we feel and think as product managers, oh, I need to be knowing this and solving this on my own. The problem with product management is every time we take something on, chances are most of the time it's new. I'm an innovation product management, so every time it's something new. So always ask for help. As product managers, we do not ask for enough help and we take it on our own to do it. And we are successfully able to do it by learning, by asking, all that. But what I have learned, and I learned this quickly back in PayPal days where I met Sudha, I was successful at PayPal because early on, somehow I made a group of engineers my buddies. I would show them the bigger picture of how product management is done and why it is important, what engineers are developing, and they helped me figure out the best product solution that was possible. So the reason I'm sharing this story is never do anything alone. Forget about AI. In AI, as I have been talking along, and that's why I said, by the way, all you do is whiteboard and do a deck and stuff like that. You always have to have this 3 times a week meeting, whether it is your data engineer, or data scientist, your tech lead, whoever that person is. And start there. And then, so the quick answer is you will not be able to do it on your own, especially if you're doing the first time around. That said, for an e-commerce domain, I have launched so many experiences. AI product management for e-commerce has almost become my second nature. So I know a lot of unknowns are knowns to me. So I'm able to put that as questions, and that's what I was just doing for this other consulting gig. Okay, these are the 5 known questions I know I need answers for. Please get me the answers. So that is how you can even start. You can say, okay, I want to see if there is any data imbalance. Guess what? Chances are, even if you throw out some of these questions, you increase your trust and credibility with your data science team. And it's always about asking the right questions, even as product managers, and nothing to do with AI. You ask the right question very quickly, you'll get your team on your side. So the stories I'm sharing with you is all one thing. Do not do it alone, especially if you're not sure of. So I was on the data wrangling step, and I did add this thing, exploratory data analysis and data visualization, literally like in real time, 10 minutes before this thing. A note about exploratory data analysis and data visualization, and why this is so important to product management tasks. Have I done it in my formally in the last 5 years that I've been AI product manager? Short answer is no. The long answer is wish I knew about this and I would have done it. It would have gotten me more credibility. And now I have come to a realization this is the path to getting the business on your side. So as the name suggests, exploratory data analysis or data visualization, we have all as product managers have done a ton of data analytics. And when I say data analytics, as a consumer of analytics, how is my product doing? How many click-throughs? How many fails? Or what is your offline numbers on? So it's all about numbers. So the way it will work in machine learning is the moment you import your data, obtaining data phase, the moment you get your data, tell your data scientist, once again, these are those questions that you can ask, and chances are they'll say, oh, we have already cleaned our data and stuff like that. You say, okay, I know a new data feed came in. I want to see a sample of that data. And you immediately do an exploratory data analysis there. And an exploratory data analysis, there are lots of different tools. If you want to get your feet wet, just use whether it is ggplot in R or Python, or you use Plotly or whatever, to just quickly plot that very raw data that has come to you. And of course, it has to be in Excel format and all that. That is a given, some structured format. And you see how your data looks like. And if you see your data just looks like high calorie, low calorie, calorie, medium calorie, semi-medium calorie, you're like, no, you know this needs to get fixed. And that's where you gain trust and credibility immediately with your data scientist. And you'll say, hey, something doesn't look right here. So that's what I mean by data exploratory analysis. And by the way, I'm giving you this calorie example. Every person eats food, so they know what calories are all about. And then 10 calorie columns doesn't make sense unless it has to do with unless the problem is around that. So your data scientist will also catch. But think about it if it is detecting cancer. And I was reviewing this data set about detecting cancer. I cannot make sense of it. Medium radius, high radius, lower extremity radius, upper. I'm like, what are these fields? I actually talked to a doctor over the summer, and they said, yeah, these are all important fields and you cannot ignore any. But then these 3 fields are useless. You don't need it. And they all were like same labels. So if your data scientist is not from the healthcare field, the product manager is the only one can tell it. Then you come into the scrubbing and cleaning of data that we were talking about, and the data is transformed. All the redundancies are gone. The data is balanced, and you have created some new features and everything. Data is ready for your data scientist kings and queens to come and build the model. At that phase, when your data is totally ready and pristine, you'll see, okay, I will visualize the data again as a product manager. That is when you visualize the data, and whether you draw histograms or bar plots, or you show relationships between housing prices and number of rooms, or housing prices and the suburbs it is in. Whatever your problem is, once you start visualizing and you see some outliers and all, you can make a business case from it and go to it. So these 2 things if we can develop as product managers some skill on our own so that we can do our own back of the envelope or back of the visualization tool analysis, will totally set you apart in the eyes of data scientists and businesses both. Okay. So yeah, oh, my animation. Those are the two steps. One, when the data is extremely raw, and once when it goes to the data scientist. And by the way, this visualization, before it goes to the data scientist or at the same time the data scientist starts building the model, is also very important just for this collaboration between building model and visualization, because you can do your own testing given you have access to those environments to run your model and test, or some testing tools to even compare that, okay, my data is this, it's in an Excel format, how far is your model, and just plotting your actual versus what the model is predicting. You can do some of it on your own. Okay. So splitting, oh, it's 9 to 8. And by the way, we are almost in the last two. The first four is where the product managers are heavily involved, taking ownership, sitting at the table and asking for more questions. Even if you see your data scientist teams are kind of saying, oh, we got it, we have it, we have done it. You'll say, okay, if you have done it, I want to see it. The first four. The last three are all about data scientists and machine learning engineers heavy, where they are doing the prediction and you are the business acceptance testers. Pretty much that's the way I can summarize the last three. So splitting data is also in terms of preparing your data and just helping your machine learning engineers know, how do you want your data to be split? What of data split is needed? Because if your data scientist, and chances are they'll never say this, if your data scientists say, yeah, we are training and testing it on the same data, then it's not a good model. So as the product manager, you can tell them, I want to save 25%, or my data is better if you don't just do a random 25, I can do a even odd split and things like that. And that you will know only if you're familiar with the domain and data. So being involved in the purpose of the slide is being involved in these stages. Oh yeah, and I have like, what are those different? So your data stream coming from your live system can look different formats, like time aware split. Oh, this is a very important. You can say, you can tell your data scientist, you know, I want every other week of data to be in the test and every other week to be in the training. So there are lots of different ways to split this. You're not going to actually write the code to split it, but you should have enough insight about the data to be able to say. Or if you don't have it, guess what? Just get a meeting with your data engineers and say, hey, explain the way data is coming. And are there any time splits that can happen? Or I want to see what sort of splits you're using. You can just have that open-ended conversation too. Finally, select features. By far, the most important product management step is feature selection. Now, a caveat about feature selection: feature engineering happens in supervised machine learning only. It doesn't happen in deep learning. That is the primary difference between deep learning and supervised learning. Deep learning is all about this black box. And of course, Sudha is the guru there about autonomous vehicle, or I just throw in the data and the computer processes based on what they understand. But when it comes to supervised learning, the product managers need to understand what features are important, need to know the business domain and data. And some of it I'm already been talking about it, but this is a step in that process. That's why I want to cover. PM are an important resource for ML engineers to inform which features are most necessary for predictions. If you're trying to predict the traffic, do not tell me the name of the car. Yeah, this is a very good example about knowing what features are important. Imagine you are recruited by the city of San Francisco to create a new traffic prediction algorithm based on weather. Now, weather and what you will need is the traffic pattern, the cars, the kind of cars, the hybrid, gas, whatever. But you'll also know it's Honda or Toyota or Yed, blue, green, whatever. As a product manager, you'll say, like, I don't need the model of the car. I don't need how many passengers are sitting in the car. I don't need the color of the car. And then you can also, I'm going to jump to this. creating new features and derived features, I've not talked about that yet. If you have tons of features and you start giving all of those features to your model, you may not create the best model, as against if you took all those features, and features here, there are these columns, you took all those columns, thought about your business, looked at the feature, and you say, based on these features, if I can derive a new feature that will impact my model accuracy more than these three features individually. No data scientist without the domain knowledge will be able to do that. The only person can do that is a product manager. And to give you a specific example of this is, and this was a theoretical exercise I was doing with one of my peer product manager in sales. They had how many sales in a small store, how many sales in a medium store or in a big store, when was those sales happening, what was the foot traffic. And what we did was we took all these different columns and we spent a lot of time working with the sales team and the store team and myself to say, what if we let go of these 6 columns and have these 2 features, which says propensity for sale at X store at night is this. Because the whole problem statement there was, how many people do I need to staff at night versus in the morning? So knowing the problem and then knowing which features predict that was extremely important. Just saying that this store had so much sales, yes, it's an important feature, but what time of the day? It was in a different one. So we as product managers came in and created new features. And if you can get to that sort of involvement in this process, you will be like the cherished resource in this whole data science life cycle. So the 4 top boxes are the most heavy in product management. Training the models, data scientist takes over, and then they will keep you informed that, okay, I used this algorithm, I used a linear regression and my accuracy was this. I used a random forest or a support vector machine and my model accuracy went up, and you'll say, yeah, that makes sense. You're just kind of getting involved. The training the model is the actual hands-on piece which your data scientist will do. Oh, that was, training and predicting the model. And when the predictions happen, you will be involved and you'll say, okay, give me access to some testing tools on you so that you can also run their models and see the accuracy. But chances are in many companies that I have worked, I could never get access to dev environment because of the guidelines and all. So my data scientist in HP was able to give me just a simple web front-end tool, which actually was pretty good. It's almost like when you run your Google algorithms and test it. And I could use their models. I can use my own images. It was about computer vision. And I could see if the backpack is being boundary boxed or not, or if a laptop and a backpack is getting mixed up. So I could do certain amount of my testing and get back to the data scientist on that. And then evaluating the accuracy is once again where product managers come back in action. You can simply think of this stage as your business acceptance testing, where the models are pushed in production and you are testing whether your accuracy that you originally talked about at defining the problem stage, is it meeting or not meeting, and constantly like vigorously working with your data scientist or data engineers or whoever that person is on your team to see how quickly can you update the model based on the new data that is coming in. And from here, the whole journey of product management starts. But the reason I'm not covering that is only for one reason. Once the models are pushed in production, in many ways, while the operational processes will be different, your role as a product manager is exactly what it was without AI. My new models are pushed. There is an API that where I send blue jeans and recommendation comes back. I need to see how relevant those recommendations was. Did it turn it into an actual sale? or I need to fine tune my model, or go back to my engineers and say, oh, search results were not good. In many times, I'll tell you, and that's where my closing statement would be, chances are in many sophisticated companies, search is already empowered by AI. But as a product manager, you're not even aware that, okay, it is an ML-based search or it was a regular rule-based search. So that's why once the models are pushed into production, as a product manager, your role really remains the same, constantly giving feedback and enhancing your product. So just to recap, always solve the right customer problems to create experiences that customer care for. Never be a hammer in search of a nail. What you create should align to your business priorities. In the end, we create product and experiences that benefits everyone. And it is even more important in machine learning because of the time investment and resources. As an artificial intelligence product managers, know the data, know the machine learning cycle, know how to prove ROI. Continuous learning on ML, AI, data sciences to be abreast with changing nature of technology. I kind of touched upon this as when I was talking about data labeling. Yes, you need to learn data labeling, and Sudha's example was right on. You need to do it yourself to know what it is, but try to learn it in an informal way rather than signing up to do that at your company, because that will become your day job then. And once again, about continuous learning, video intelligence, computer vision is very different from NLP. That's why it is so complicated. So when somebody says AI product manager, they also have to understand what is an NLP problem. An NLP problem is a deep learning problem. It's not a supervised machine learning problem. And even there we are labeling and all. So it's like, and no, I do not have the answer for how technical I have to be. Every company and product is different. Google wants MS in computer science to be their product managers, while Facebook wants MBAs. MBAs may not have ever written a line of code. So the only reason I put this here is there is no one size fits all. At PayPal, where I was, I did not ever have access to a dev environment to do anything. But to know about the technology has always been important. I have been an API product manager, but I did not get a chance to code an API at PayPal. But I needed to know how API metering is done, how throttling is done, where APIs are used. So that does not change with AI as well. And so it's all about know how to drive the car. You do not need to know how to build the engine. So you need to know where AI and data science can be applied to your problem. Applications of AI, you need to know that as a product manager. But once you start knowing that, then of course you can go as deep as you can. This last few months, I started coding and I'm loving it, but that's not really relevant for or required in many places. With that, I will come to a stop.
Do you want to take one last question from Emmanuel?
Yes, please. I'm sorry if I went longer.
No, this is awesome.
So I think Emmanuel's question here is, how do you assess if the model gives you good results, and is it just comparing the model with real results and then changing the model accordingly? So basically on the feedback loop.
Yeah, so the question is, how do you check the model accuracy if model is producing good results? Is
right.
that, yeah. So this is where your test and training data split was. It was, you are training your model on the training data set, and then your test data set is the data that your model has never seen before. So then you run your model on the test data set and you will see the accuracy. And in the test data set, you already have the result. So you will see that when you were training, what was the precision? And when you were running that same model on the test data set, what was the precision? If it went lower on the test, then you know that your model needs to be fine-tuned. So that's where the...
Also his question...
Yeah, go ahead.
He also said, he put in another challenge, and it's pretty common to have low data. So what if you have low data, not to have enough to split between test and train?
So there is this whole thing about data augmentation, creating synthetic data. So this whole thing, the whole machine learning, the issue is about data. So knowing how upfront your testing strategy, how are you going to test it? And since it's a public, whatever, without naming the company actually. So we did have to produce synthetic data where if it was a backpack, I just had a picture of a backpack from airport. So I asked my engineers to say, what if the backpack was in a low light, high light, tilted this way, tilted that way, so that you always distinguish a backpack from just a box. So you could create synthetic data. So low data is a very prevalent thing, or no data to test is a very prevalent thing, but you need to have that strategy defined up front. How are you going to test it? And where is the testing data coming from? So if you want to read more, read about data augmentation and synthetic data, which will have lots of answers. I have some other ideas, but we're so many running out of topic also.
Jonathan has one question that you said start with the customer, but looks like the customer is not involved at all. Is that true?
So when you say customer is not involved at all, I would love to understand, to clarify that question, but I'll preempt it in this way. Let's say you're working at an e-commerce company. So when you say customer is not involved, then it means you are thinking that, oh, AI can help my business. How do I go about it? And if that is the question, you should know, just as an employee of a company, what is your corporate priorities? You should know as a product manager, some top problem that different organization may have and how AI can solve it, and then you evangelize it. So that's where the evangelism part comes, and you just set up a meeting and go and present, we think this is what AI can help you do. So it's a very organic way to promote, to get the customer on your side. And this is the punchline. If you write a subject email with the subject line that I understand your problem and I have a solution using AI, you will get a meeting. And even if you don't say AI, you will get a meeting if you say, Mr. Business, Mr. Customer, I understand what your top objectives and priorities are, and I think I can help you get there. You will have a meeting, because no executive or customer wakes up thinking I will use AI. They wake up thinking, this is my problem. How do I solve it? I'm not sure if that's what you were meaning when you said if the customer is not involved, but I kind of extrapolated it to be that.
I think we're on time. So thank you so much, Mamta, for coming and for helping us understand. If you want to, if anyone from the audience wants to touch base with you, can they contact you on LinkedIn for further questions?
Oh, sure. And you can also email me. LinkedIn is also always fine, but and I can.
Sure.
And my email is Mamta Narain at realworldai.com. I should have. And I can share the deck, Sudha and Sneha, with you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
This is fantastic.
Thank you, Sudha.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a good day all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Hey, I just see there were 24 chats. If there were more questions, Sneha, at least I would like to know the question. It always helps. So, or maybe I can copy it, the questions. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes, we'll share. Thank you so much. Bye, Mamta. Bye, Sneha. Could you stop the recording, guys?